Welcome to a new way to level up in D&D. More classes, more customization, easier multi-classing. If you are looking for a fun twist to character progression, then you are looking for D&D skill trees. If you'd like to learn more, check the description. Otherwise, on to the video. Hello everyone, welcome back to another DST video. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Ranger. The Ranger has always been a really interesting class to me because it sucked so bad in 2014. They kind of updated it in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and made it a lot better, but they kind of took away some of the flavor of the Ranger in my opinion with some of the changes, kind of turning most of their really fun, quirky features into just skill upgrades, which I understand the concept behind doing so, but I just feel like it could have been done better then. And then when they brought out the 2024 version, I was like, wow, they really wrecked it now, because Hunter's Mark is just a class feature now. And as much as I enjoy Hunter's Mark, I mean, my Ranger is going to have a Hunter's Mark-esque feature attached to it, but I don't actually like the implementation of it because it drains away your concentration, making it so that you can't use any of your cool Ranger spells. And so, if you want to check out a Ranger that actually has good implementation, at least in my opinion, let's check out the DST Ranger. Notably, this Ranger is a lot better than the typical Ranger with most of their abilities, and that is why they use a D8 hit dice instead of a D10 hit dice. So they're a little squishier than a regular fighter-like character, like the Fighter or the Paladin, but notably, again, you can take Fighter as your main class, and then, subclass with Ranger so you can upgrade them at the same time, and you'll have a D10 hit dice Ranger just like that. Another thing to note is that my version of the Ranger is very range heavy. They are very steered toward using a bow and arrow, crossbow, dart, blowgun, something like that. Crossbow, a ranged weapon, maybe even using thrown weapons. But you do not have to build them that way. It's just that the majority of the features work really well when you are using a ranged weapon. And so the D8 hit dice is a lot less bad, doesn't feel as terrible when you're usually not getting hit because you're in the back lines. Dexterity, of course, is their major stat because of this reason, but Wisdom is still their spell stat just like it was in all the other versions of the Ranger. But let's look over the starting benefits. 8 plus your Constitution modifier in hit points, 1 hit dice, proficiency in light and medium armor, not heavy armor, shields, simple weapons, and martial weapons, and then you'll get to choose 1 set of tools, strength and dexterity saving throws, and 2 from animal handling, athletics, insight, investigation, nature, perception, stealth, and survival. And those are, of course, your skill proficiencies. And then the main feature that comes up if you subclass, multiclass, or take this as your main class, Mark Prey. This is kind of the Hunter's Mark stand-in that I was talking about. This says that you can use a bonus action to mark a target within 60 feet of yourself. You can do this once per short rest, or expend a spell slot to do it again before resting. You cannot have more than 1 target marked at a time, and you cannot cast Hunter's Mark on the same target that you have marked. A target that is marked in this manner will take an extra d6 force damage every time you damage it, and you always know the direction in which your target is relative to you. Marking the target will not be felt by the target until you attack it, and if the current marked target dies, you can use your bonus action to mark a new target without spending a spell slot. So basically it works exactly like Hunter's Mark, deals an extra d6 of force damage, and it does not require concentration. And of course, this is available at level 1, but gets a lot better the more you go into Ranger. Notably, this is also their main tracking feature, allowing them to be able to track things by marking them and then following that path. But you'll also get extra features to go on top of this later. The Ranger, of course, is a mixed class in the sense that it is both a spellcaster and a martial character, leaning a little bit heavier into the martial side of things, but has spells as well. So we're going to grab the spellcasting off right away, picking up nature's spells. This gives us access to the ranger spell list, +2 to our caster level, and we're considered a spontaneous caster. We'll gain 3 known spells from any list that we have access to. We notably don't gain any cantrips in this, but that's okay. Picking up an ability score improvement over here, and then grabbing Canny. This is the stand-in to give you a little bit of extra skill abilities. It says that you can choose one of your skill proficiencies, and you gain expertise in that skill. You can also speak, read, and write 2 additional languages of your choice, making you a lot better at communications with other races, and a little bit better at one of your skill proficiencies. Notably, unlike the Ranger of 2024 and the Ranger that Tasha's Cauldron of Everything gave us, my Ranger is not a skill monkey. If you do want to be a skill monkey Ranger, subclass Rogan, or go main class Rogue and subclass Ranger. Either way, you're going to get a lot more skill features, or maybe you could even go Investigator Ranger. The point of the matter is that the main features available to the Ranger are not going to be skill-based. They'll be more around skills, kind of similar to the Investigator in ways, but different overall. We'll start over here with Crossbow Warrior. It says that when you use a crossbow, you can ignore the loading property. And when you land a critical hit with a crossbow, you can deal 1 weapon die piercing damage to another creature within 10 feet of the first target. A great way to spread a little damage around the battlefield for free. Next to that, we have Bow Expert. This says that when you make an attack with a bow that misses, you gain advantage on your next attack with that bow. Additionally, all 1s on the damage dice for your attacks using a bow can be re-rolled. Not necessarily the highest damage increase, but it isn't bad, especially if you've marked your prey, meaning you get to roll that extra d6. That's 2 dice worth of chances to roll 1 that can be re-rolled. Over here we've got these slightly weirder but still pretty nice features depending on what weapon you're using, starting with Dart Genius. This says that when you take the attack action and at least one of the attacks is made with a dart, you can make 1 extra attack with a dart. So as long as you're using at least some darts with your attack strategy, you'll be able to get a free +1 attack basically on every attack action you take, as long as you're using at least 1 dart for those attacks. And you also have to make the extra attack that you're taking with a dart. So it's a slightly limiting weapon style, but also pretty nice. And a free +1 attack at 5 node increase is not bad. The slightly less nice feature, on the other hand, is Blowgun Doyon. This is honestly not the best feature, but if you want to use a blowgun, it is a way to pick up the power of that weapon. This says that whenever you roll an 18 through 20 when attacking with a blowgun, deal an extra 1d8 poison damage, and the poison ignores poison resistance and immunity, which means that you don't have to worry about poison resistance or immunity for this damage, but it is only a +8 or +d8 on 18 through 20 rolls, which makes your critical hits a little better, and the things that are close to critical hits also better. Notably, you almost never need to worry about this bonus damage missing because you have to kind of hit in order to get the bonus damage off. Notably, after that, we can pick up a +2 caster on the left half, a +2 spells known on the right, and then on either side there is feats available to us. In the middle of these 2 is Nature's Veil. This says that you can draw on the power of nature to hide yourself in view briefly. As a bonus action, you can magically become invisible, along with any equipment you are wearing or carrying, until the start of your next turn. And then you can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Pretty nice, available to help you hide around. If you're worried about getting attacked at the end of your turn, you can turn invisible with a bonus action, go run to a different location so that your enemies don't know where you're at, and then until the start of your next turn, they will have trouble finding you. Find the Trail is one of those really interesting features that I thought was really great to allow the Ranger to literally feel like a tracking expert, and you can flavor this however you want, but mechanically how it works is if you're currently tracking a set of footprints, trail of wagon wheels, or some other path created by another creature, you can attempt to mark them with Mark Prey. They can make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC, and on a fail, they are marked. On a success, you learn how far away they currently are, and they are immune to this effect until they take a long rest. So notably, this allows you to figure out how far away they are from you, but the main feature here is being able to mark prey from further than 60 feet away, because notably, mark prey, you need to be within 60 feet to use it, but if they move past that 60-foot limit, they're still marked, and you can find them by just following basically where your senses are telling you they're at. So if you're following a path that they made, and then you mark them by following that path, you now have a direct line to where they're at that you can follow to easily track them down as a ranger. And I think that was a super cool feature to allow rangers to really feel like tracking experts. Of course, if they succeed their save, you still get a little bit of information, allowing you to know how far away they are, but then you'll have to follow the tracks as normal. You, after that, get a proficiency bonus increase, an ability score improvement, and one of the quickest +1 attacks in the system. Really nice, and unfortunately rangers get their +1 attack on the opposite side of their class than extra attack, but this could also be considered fortunate, because if you're taking a different class to grab your extra attack from, it means you don't have to waste doubling up extra attack like you sometimes have to with some weird multi-class combinations. That being said, let's move into this left half of the ranger next, starting with Vanish. Vanish says that you can use the hide action as a bonus action on your turn. Also, you cannot be tracked by non-magical means unless you choose to leave a trail, which is pretty interesting. Makes you and your group almost impossible to track down unless you have got a wizard chasing you or something. Down this little offshoot, we can pick up a +1 caster, Primeval Awareness, which is a very interesting feature and slightly different than the old feature. This says that you can use your bonus action and expend a spell slot to focus your awareness on a nearby creature. You target a creature within 100 feet of you, and that you can see. You can choose to learn one of the following characteristics: armor class, immunities/resistances, vulnerabilities, or current health. You can do this in combat, or you could do it outside of combat before combat breaks out to just learn a little bit of extra stuff about them. For example, before going in, you could check and see if they're vulnerable to any damage, and if your DM says, oh, well, they're actually vulnerable to cold damage, well, then make sure your wizard's prepared with all their freezing spells. Malleable Mana is one of the most interesting features in the whole system because of the way that it's worded. It says that you gain access to the Druid spell list for cantrips, and gain +2 cantrips. I honestly think it wouldn't be the worst to just give the ranger straight up the Druid spell list in general, but I thought that might be too powerful for free in their main class, so I said just for cantrips. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that you can take a 1-level dip into Druid to pick this up, and it might just be better, so I might change that in the future. But for now, it's only for cantrips. And then off that is a +1 proficiency bonus and a +1 cantrip, which means that on the ranger you could get up to 3 cantrips, all from the Druid list. After this is Ammunition Hoarder. Now, if your DM is really into making sure you track down how much ammunition you're using, this is the be-all, end-all, best feature you'll be picking up. It says that the combined efforts of searching during and after battles, as well as picking out any sparse items that could fit their roles, you no longer need to track ammunition and will never run out. Very nice. It's probably useless in some campaigns, but in the campaigns that it's useful in, this will save you a ton of gold. After that, we've now got 2 more separate paths that going down. These are kind of based off of the Hunter subclass in some ways, but in general are better and actually useful features rather than what the Hunter gave us in 2014. We'll start down this path with an ability score improvement, and then we can grab Giant Killer. Giant Killer says that when a large or larger creature within 5 feet of you hits or misses you with an attack, you can use your reaction to attack that creature immediately after its attack, provided that you can see the creature. This is a free reaction attack as long as you're fighting a large creature. And I mean, horses are considered large. So this is like 90% of the creatures in the game that are threatening. I mean, obviously goblins aren't going to be setting this off, but if you're fighting anything worth its weight, then it's probably large. And a free reaction attack is really nice. After that, we'll pick up Spread Shot, which says that when you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, you can deal any excess damage that wasn't dealt to the creature to another creature that you attack before the end of your next turn. This is super interesting because it would actually work really well on something like the Paladin, who might be dealing a ton of damage with a Smite and might definitely overkill their target. So for example, if a goblin you're attacking has 6 health and you deal 15 damage to it, you can deal the additional 9 to the next attack you make. And if that attack deals excess damage, then you can deal that excess damage to the next attack you make, and it can keep stacking as long as you're always dealing, damage to the next person before the end of the next turn. Because again, this only works as long as you do it before the end of your next turn. But still really nice. After that, we'll pick up another feat, and then we can grab Multi-Attack Defense, which is another really nice feature. This says that when a creature hits you with an attack, you gain a +4 bonus to AC against all subsequent attacks made by that creature for the rest of the round. And it only activates once per round per creature. So if you had 8 creatures that all had, 2 attacks, each one could hit you once, but then the next attack they each make would be at a +4 bonus to your AC to hit, which is a lot more difficult to hit than you think. I mean, a +4 bonus to AC, if you have a 17 AC, that bumps you all the way up to 21. That's almost as good as the shield spell, and you just get this for free, no reaction required. On the other path here, we can start by picking up a feat. And after that, we'll pick up Horde Breaker. This is another really nice feature, and honestly another great pickup if you just want to dip Ranger for a bit of extra damage, using Mark Prey in this especially. It says that once on each of your turns, when you make a weapon attack, you can make another attack with the same weapon against a different creature that is within 5 feet of the original target, within range of your weapon. This is notably worded in a way that allows you to attack with a bow or a ranged weapon. You can grab Dart Genius and Horde Breaker and be making 2 additional attacks on each of your turns at like level 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. Level 4 if you rush it. Probably around level 5 if you want to get a subclass in, but that's still crazy early to be making 3 attacks per turn. And of course, this is a very martial focused class, which means that it's not taking spell slots or anything to keep this going. So obviously your bonus action is going to be taken up by moving the marked prey around, but other than that, you aren't expending resources here. You can just keep making those 3 attacks really fast and really effective. Next, we'll grab Colossus Slayer. This says that when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, the creature takes an extra 1d8 damage if it's below its hit point maximum. And you can deal this extra damage only once per turn. Just extra damage. The Ranger, honestly, especially my version of the Ranger, is just really good at stacking damage up on their attacks and just not necessarily going Nova, but just being really consistent and just destroying the enemies. This is one of the things that I've tried to do with most of my martial classes. Some of them are more based off like battlefield control or healing or other abilities, but Ranger, Fighter, Samurai, Gladiator, all these martials that are like really hardcore martials, one of the biggest bonuses I've tried to do is just give them extra damage, because I wanted them to feel powerful in comparison to the spellcasters, especially since I technically buffed spellcasting in the process of making this system. So that is why the Ranger feels a lot more powerful the way that I've been talking about it so far. That is because it is stronger. My entire class system is stronger than regular D&D. So you should keep that in mind if you're feeling about trying it out. A +1 caster follows this, and after that is an ability score improvement. Then we get to pick up Stand Against the Tide. This is a feature that I really love. It says that when a hostile creature misses you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction to force that creature to repeat the same attack against another creature other than itself, of your choice. This is really cool. It does have the range restriction of whatever the weapon that creature was using. If they're attacking you with like a spear or something and they miss, you could redirect that to, their nearby ally that's, right outside of your range, but definitely within their range, and they stab them and possibly kill their own teammate, which can be super cool. This does, of course, cost your reaction. There are a few reactions the Ranger has in this whole setup, but most of them can be managed pretty easily. After that, we can grab Volley. This is a really great feature, especially if you're just doing the classic ranged Ranger. It says that you can use your action to make a ranged attack against any number of creatures within 15 feet of a point you can see within your weapon's range. You must have ammunition for each target. If you have ammunition hoarder, this doesn't matter. And you make a separate attack roll for each target. So if there's like 2 creatures spread around the battlefield, this isn't going to be great. But if there's like a horde of 20 goblins all crowded together, you can hit all of them with one attack. This takes your action. It's not an attack. It takes your entire action to do this. And it's not considered an attack, but you do technically make as many attacks as possible for all the creatures within that area. It's so cool. And then we get to pick up a +1 to our proficiency bonus, and finally grab extra attack. This comes online a little later than some martials, but again, that's because you get +1 attack so early on the Ranger. So it's kind of evened out by the fact that they're both pretty quick and not on the same path, which means that you can pick up the +1 attack without having to waste extra attack nodes. We're in the home stretch now, checking out this middle path, and honestly the middle path might be one of my favorites because it allows you to get some of the features from the old 2014 Ranger that have been buffed to a point that they're actually useful. Starting with +2 spells known, and then we can grab Land's Stride. This says that moving through non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. You can also pass through non-magical plants without being slowed by them, and without taking damage from them if they have thorns, spines, or similar hazards. In addition, you have advantage on saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede movement, such as those created by the Entangle spell. After that, we can pick out an ability score improvement, and then we've got 2 of the same feature right next to each other. You could pick up them both, or just pick up one if you want to skip over this and you don't find it interesting. But we can start with Master of Terrain. I'm just going to grab them both here and explain that they do the exact same thing. When you get this, select one of the following environments: desert, ocean, forest, underdark, mountains, tundra, or plains. And of course, if you pick up both of these, then you'll get to pick 2 different ones, basically. Well, in this terrain, you gain a d4 on all your d20 rolls. This is favorite terrain, but good. Every single one of your d20 rolls while you're in this terrain, you get a d4. You get free, permanent bless. If your campaign takes place underground, you're blessed for the whole campaign, as long as you pick up Underdark Master of Terrain. And that is something that I think is awesome. After that, we can grab a +2 to our caster, or a +2 to our spells known, and off of this we've got a few different paths. The middle path is a bit boring, but useful in the +1 proficiency bonus and a +2 caster, which of course are always great. And then on the 2 ends of here, we've got Feral Senses in the middle, but I'll go over that in a second. Otherwise, it's caster levels and caster spells to gain, Fry Prey and Blister Prey, which are the other 2 ways to upgrade your Mark Prey feature. Let's start by going left and grabbing Fry Prey. So +2 to our caster level, then +2 spells known, and fry prey. This says that your marked prey damage increases by plus 1d10 force damage. So this means that you'll be rolling a d6 and a d10 every time you damage the target you have marked. It doesn't turn the damage die into a d10, it adds a d10, which is so cool, especially if you have something like the bow expert that doesn't allow you to allows you to re-roll all ones that you roll. Now you have an even higher chance of using that feature because you'll be rolling at least 3 damage dice whenever you hit something that's marked by as prey. Next we'll grab Feral Senses, which is a bit niche but technically useful. It says that you gain a preternatural senses that help you fight creatures you can't see. When you attack a creature you can't see, your inhibitability to see doesn't impose disadvantage on attack rolls against it. You are also aware of the location of any invisible creature within 30 feet of you, provided that that creature isn't hidden from you and you aren't blinded or deafened. This basically gives you like pseudo true sight. You don't need to worry about invisible creatures basically ever again. After that we'll pick up a +2 caster, and then we can grab Blister Prey, which very similar to Fry Prey says that your mark prey damage is increased by +1 d8 force damage. Again, this is not changing the damage dice of your mark prey, it's adding one. So if you have both Blister and Fry Prey, your mark prey damage is 1d6 plus 1d8 plus 1d10. You're rolling 3 extra damage dice whenever you damage them. The Ranger is one of the absolute most efficient damage dealers in the game. And now you probably understand why I nerfed their hit dice. They're nowhere near as defensive as the fighter, protective as the fighter, accurate as the samurai, attacks as often as the gladiator, and way less tanky than the barbarian. But the Ranger can dish out damage. Going over some feats that the Ranger might take interest in, basically they're not very skill based. I've taken that aspect of the Ranger and kind of removed it completely. So if you want to be really good at some skills, you might want to pick up something like Skilled or Skill Expert, maybe even something like Keen Mind or Linguist, just allowing you to be a little bit better at using some skills checks. But honestly, with the amount of damage you can pump out, it's probably better to go for some martial feats that will be boosting your damage. And since the Ranger is definitely leaned toward range damage, I'm going to talk about a few of these martial feats that I think are super useful. Sharpshooter, level 1, says that attacking at long range or within 5 feet doesn't impose disadvantage on your ranged weapon attack rolls. Notably, you can get this from a feature on the Ranger itself, but if you don't want to take that node, you can take this instead. It also says that your ranged weapon attacks ignore half and 3/4 cover. And if you take this a second time, you can get its level 2 feature, which says that you can take a -5 to hit on your ranged weapon attacks, and if you do so, gain a +10 to the damage on that attack. Super nice. This is the Sharpshooter of old. It does technically take 2 feats to get it to that point, but that's because the Sharpshooter of old was too powerful. Or if you're thinking about being more of a crossbow build, you can grab Crossbow Expert, which only has 1 level, and it says that you ignore the loading quality of crossbows, which you are proficient in, and being within 5 feet of a hostile creature doesn't impose disadvantage on your ranged attack rolls. When you use the attack action and attack with a one-handed weapon, you can use a bonus action to attack with a crossbow, a hand crossbow that you are holding, giving you even more attacks on this character that already has the capability of making so many attacks. And then last martial feat that I'm going to recommend, of course you can pick whatever you want, but I think Barrier Breaker is super effective, especially on ranged characters. It says that when you attack a barrier, you deal extra damage to it equal to your proficiency bonus. And when you break a barrier, you can make an extra weapon attack against the creature whose barrier you broke. So a little bit of extra damage that you can be dealing, and depending on what kind of barrier it is, you might be able to mark your prey under it, meaning that you'll be dealing extra damage to it already, so getting an extra attack off is super nice, because then you can trigger your marked prey damage again. A few initiate feats that I think are pretty good on the Ranger also, we'll start with Ranger Initiate itself. You gain a +1 to your caster, and you learn the Hunter's Mark spell. And when you cast it, you can expend an extra spell slot to use the spell concentration free. So this is technically a way to kind of get Hunter's Mark on any character, but I would say that Rangers don't necessarily need this unless you want to avoid using Mark Prey, which I don't know why you would avoid using Mark Prey, but this is kind of a way to get Mark Prey on any character without having to dip into Ranger itself. Otherwise, some good initiate feats for the Ranger itself would be things like Trainer Initiate, which allows you to cast Find Familiar once per day as an action without using material components, and Druid Initiate, which allows you to learn the Cure Wounds spell, and when you cast it, roll d12s instead of d8s. And then you can also cast the spell once per short rest without using a spell slot, so a little bit of extra healing. I would say a bit of spell casting bonuses to any Ranger is going to help them go a lot longer, because Rangers already have a decently cool spell list, so picking up things like Wizard Initiate, Sorcerer Initiate, Oracle Initiate, or any of the other Spellcaster Initiate feats, along with things like any of the Spellcaster feats, can really go a long way to make your Ranger super unique with their spellcasting capabilities, alongside those super powerful weapon attacks that they're making. That being said, that's the whole Ranger. I'm not going to go over too many feats because, just like I've said in the past, the feat section I feel like is not necessarily the best for me to be going over in the first place, because most of the feats I've already talked about, and all of the feats are good if you just read them and figure out which builds they go with. They're usually pretty powerful, and there's almost no detrimental feats for you, so read up and figure out the ones that you want the most. That being said, let's hop into the votes for the next class. We are getting low, guys. I believe like 14, 15, 16 more classes to go before we're all done with every class that I have made. I'm going to offer up the Artificer, first of all. Now, notably, the Artificer won the class vote a couple of weeks ago, but I ended up looking through the Artificer and saying, it's not good enough yet. I'm going to have to redo it. And so I redid the class, and now it's way better, way more interesting, way more customizable to make your Artificer way more effective at mixing and matching class features into their weapons that they're infusing to make super interesting and fun capabilities that their items and infusions can impose on themselves or their party members. The next class I will bring up will be the Manipulator. This is a class all about using a material or matter or like aura, whatever you want to flavor your material as, you are using that to cast your spells and control the battlefield. It's kind of like a full caster that's all about manipulation. And sorry if these all choices are spellcasters, but we have mostly spellcasters left to talk about. So the next one I'm going to bring up is the Warlock. Everybody knows what the Warlock is, but it still hasn't been chosen yet. So the Warlock is a class that's all about basically using Charisma as a spellcasting modifier. And you can kind of go Gish with it, you can go full caster with it, but you'll be respawning your spell slots on a short rest instead of a long rest, which isn't that weird in this system, but it is one of the classes that does it. All that being said, vote in the comments below, or you can vote in my Discord, which I also have linked below in the description. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I would love it if you'd like the video or subscribed for more. But all that out of the way, thank you for watching. I hope that you have an excellent rest of your day. Goodbye.